I want to end it with a thought I've had about the Mets is that this is year one of a plan to win the World Series, right? And they're not supposed to do it this year, right? And I know you don't want to hear that, Mike, because they have first place and they have a good chance and the division is weak. I get all that. But you got to at least feel a little bit better about your situation because the future for this Mets team is up. This is not a win or go home. This is not a do or die kind of year for the New York Mets. They can get a lot better. They have an owner who finally is going to spend money, and DeGrom will come back in years to come and hopefully be healthy for a full season. And I think that's something we have to remember with this Mets team is they're in a better spot than everyone thought they would be. They didn't think they were going to win the division. Sure, it's a weak division and they can take it, but down the road into the future, this Mets team is only going to get better. And I think that's something to really think about and remind all Mets fans who are currently freaking out and will be freaking out over the next couple months with this division.
All right. I before Ryan, let me just real quick, and then you can wrap up the segment.
I say one positive thing, and
I have to. Look, you said the Met fan. I have to respond. It's like the presidential debates. You invoked my name. I have to get in here.
Yes.
This is what I'll say about this. Look, I agree the future is bright. Not even just at the major league level. You got Beatty down in Binghamton now, Alvarez in Brooklyn, top prospects. They're rebuilding the farm system. I'm not really rocker. Hopefully that deal gets done. I agree the future is bright. Trust me, having Cohen as an owner is night and day. I totally agree with that. Yep. That being said, I disagree a little bit that they weren't expected to win the division. I mean, with the number of moves they made in the offseason, and look, I'm not saying I thought they would win, but like you can't deny that I saw a lot of maybe not everyone, because I do think the Braves were also heavily favored as well. But I did see a lot of people.
Were the favorite.
Look, but I do think, though, that there were other people saying that the Mets had a real shot. So I'm not saying – I went into this year thinking, like, we could be in contention. Now, the last thing I will say is this. I do think the Braves were the better team going in. Obviously, they haven't lived up to that. I'm not going to deny that either. But the last thing I'll say is this. As the Mets showed in 2015, and obviously, look, it didn't end well at all, but anything can happen in October. Like, these people that are saying, like, oh, the Mets shouldn't have done a lot because the Dodgers are a super team now or the Padres are a super team. You know, the Mets went into 2015. I get it. It's 6 years ago. It's a completely different roster. It means nothing. Or like the 69. Well, the playoffs were totally different back then. So I'm not going to use that. But like 2015, like, I'm sorry. When they went into 2015 playoffs, I didn't think they beat the Dodgers in the first round. I didn't think they beat the Cubs in the NLCS. Like, I never thought that this team would ever win one playoff round, let alone two, and get to the World Series. And who knows, maybe if the ball bounces a different way in the World Series, who knows what would have happened. I think game one was so important, but I could do a whole show on that. But the point is, I am not one of these people that's going to say, like, I'm not patient. So that's also part of my problem, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, oh, like, it's okay. We have next year. It's like, I've suffered my whole life. I'm 21 years old. Like, what do I got? 2006 and 2015 when they they were, brides left at the altar. Like, when it's there, when it's possible, and I'm not saying I expect them the World Series. Ask Andrew Galata. He thinks that they can win the World Series. He thinks they can be a player in the playoffs. Not even I think that. But my whole point is that I agree there's a bright future, but I disagree that means we have to be accepting of a poor deadline or if we don't do well. I just don't believe personally in accepting mediocrity, but that's all that I'll say. Ryan, close us out.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot to say here too. I don't buy that point at all by Sam. Your window in the MLB, you don't know when it's going to open. You're trying to plan. Look at the Giants. They're in year zero of a plan, and they're seeing themselves in first place. They go out and get a Chris Bryant. You're aggressive. When you see this division, it's so –
the Mets went out and got a Javi Baez.
But when you look at it it's okay if they don't do this, I think it'd be an immense disappointment if they don't win this division, putting it all in perspective.
I agree. Thank you.
It would be an egregious failure on their point. They have to win this division. They're 22 and 24 in their last 46. They haven't seen their lead change at all. When you have a stretch like that, a 46-game stretch, and you don't see your lead, dwindle at all, you got to win the division. You really do. We talk about windows. You don't know when it's going to open. This is a window. This is a very viable chance at the playoffs. This roster is good enough to make the playoffs. You have to go and take care of business. You're better than these other teams in the NL East. You can't let anyone jump you. You can't give anyone hope. You have to bury them. They have to win this division. Year one of a 5-year plan. You throw that out the window. This is year one of a year one because this is a good enough roster.
You don't throw that out the window. That's just throwing. All right.
don't throw it out the window, but don't make that your number one thing. Don't go into it.
No, I get it. I trust me. I've spent the show so far blaming Zach Scott and blaming for what they did with the starting pitching. And I'm not saying the 5-year plan is an excuse for what they did. I think you're right. They should win the division. They're the better team than the Braves and the Phillies, and it's a weak division, and they should go out and win it. But all I'm saying is that to make Mets fans feel better, to think about the future, there are years beyond this where the Mets can get even better in a better NL East where they can really be a true World Series contender.
Can I make a comparison?
All right, Ron, let me just get this one last thing in, and then you can say your point. The other thing I would say about looking to the future is the Mets or franchise. Look, as a Met fan, only Met fans understand this. So is the Mets organization, more than any other team in baseball, has been so guilty of selling their fans the future. And then when the future arrives, it's a disaster. I mean, the 80s Mets were built to be a dynasty. They were built to win 5 World Series. Doc and Darryl were supposed to be the next Babe Ruth and, I don't know, Cy Young. And look what happened. Now, a lot of it wasn't their, obviously drug addiction and all that. I'm not going to get into that. But the Mets fan in the 80s was sold the future. And then look what happened. 1 World Series, a choke in the NLCS, and then poof, it was over. That great Mets run that was supposed to happen never happened. What about Generation K in the early 2000s?
Have you ever experienced something like Steve Cohen? Have you ever experienced an owner like that come into a franchise?
But the thing is, though, but even the Yankee fan can tell me, the Yankee fan knows that, money isn't everything. The Yankee fan has had an amazing ownership group for years. They've had limitless pocketbooks, and for 20 years now, they've been right there, and they've never won. And my point is, and I'll just finish it with this, Generation K, 2006. I am hopeful as a Met fan. I know people want to say I'm too negative. I am truly hopeful for this team in the future. When Steve Cohen bought this team, I was thrilled. I was so happy to be out of the coupon regime. I thought, hey, let's buy the Jets next because it's not football season. Just get ready for that. But the point is that, I am hopeful, but also I'm not going to fall victim to the same Mets trap that's been going on for 60 years, whether it was the 80s or Generation K in the 2000s or the 06 team with Reyes, Beltran, and Wright, or the 15 team when we had this great rotation of Matt, Syndergaard, and DeGrom that was supposed to be the future, the next, Braves team. The Mets have never, ever capitalized on these promises of future hope. And I'm not, history, if we forget the past, we're doomed to repeat it. And I refuse to forget history. And I refuse to simply buy into hope now after everything that's happened. And I don't think having an ownership change until there's results is going to make me change that opinion.
I just wanted to make one comparison, and then we're going to wrap up. We're way over time here. It's okay. That's been a great discussion. I can't feel your pain as a Mets fan, Mike. I can acknowledge that. The one thing I can see with the plan stuff and why I'd never buy that is the 2017 Yankees. That was year 1 of a 5-year plan. They didn't get Verlander at the deadline because it was year 1 of a 5-year plan. He ended up being the reason they didn't get to the World Series, and they haven't sniffed it since. So you don't look at plans in this league. You got to optimize your window.